It is Friday the 5th of February, and coming up on this episode we talk Formula One as more drivers get their first experiences of their new teams. We're going to look at the calendar as well, which may yet change again. We will look at IndyCar, World Endurance Championship, IMSA, bit of Formula E, some MotoGP, some touring cars as well. And I tell you what, we're going to do it from home because I came out for a walk and it's chucking it down. So let's get home, get a cup of tea and talk about everything that's been going on this week. Hello folks. Better. Let's start with Mercedes, and of course after weeks of intrigue and rumour and debate, the team has finally announced that it will launch its car on March the 2nd. No, the thing that you're thinking of, they still haven't made an announcement over. So the intrigue and the rumour and the debate continues. Also, just this morning, Williams announced that they will be launching their car on March the 5th. Over at McLaren, both Lando and Daniel have been in the factory this week, getting their seat fit, getting themselves prepped for the start of the season. Loads of brilliant social media content coming out of the team during the week. Expectation there, of course, really high. Some great quotes out of Zach Brown as well, trying to keep their expectations in check, of course, but with the move to Mercedes engines, I think a lot of people with some high expectations. Daniel, as we've said, was in the factory this week. He will now, as I understand it, remain in the UK for the duration until the teams depart for Bahrain. On to Red Bull news, and still no news over the engine freeze, although there is an F1 Commission meeting coming up this month in which we believe a vote will finally be taken over the engine freeze, which would allow Red Bull to continue with Honda engines. Also, a decision will be made over the 2025, or will it be 26, engine formula, so sort of bringing it forward by a year. Other Red Bull news is that the team will be back, Red Bull will be back in DTM. This year. Final confirmation then that 2 Ferrari 488s will be run for Liam Lawson, and the other one shared by Alex Albon and Nick Cassidy, all being run by AF Course. Lawson and Albon will also be contesting this weekend's virtual GP for Red Bull, alongside a number of Academy drivers actually. It was an all-Academy podium at the last race, the opening race of the season. Leclerc in third for Ferrari, second place for Stoffel Van Dorn at Mercedes, and the win for Enzo Fittipaldi for Haas. Really fun race, really good. On that topic, the 2 Ferrari drivers this weekend, Ferrari are actually running it as an FDA, Ferrari Driver Academy esports team, will be a hell of a lineup, Schwartzman and Eilert. It has been a quiet week for Ferrari comparatively. Last week was absolutely huge, 7 drivers testing in Fiorano. This week just Carlos and Charles at Imola. Just running some road cars around the track to get a bit of content for the team. Other than that, not a lot to report, except for the fact that the team, although it hasn't announced when its launch will be, as I understand it, are planning a 2-part launch. So the first part will be the drivers, team bosses, and everybody important. The second part, later in the year, just before the test, will be the car itself. So a bit of a 2-part tease from Ferrari. Not much to report on Alpine either, save for the fact that they will unveil their all-new junior program academy in the coming weeks. So that's something to look forward to. Aston Martin has had a great week. They're really, really happy because after all of their videos, their tease videos of Seb coming to the factory in his first days at the team, they were the most engaged team on Twitter and Instagram over the past week, and indeed the fastest growing team over all social media channels. So something to be really, really proud of for the team there. It's great. They've got new partners, new sponsors coming on board all the time, and Otmar Safnauer said during the week the car is starting to come together. The side pods, the wings, all starting to come into the race bays. Good vibe, good feeling down at Silverstone. One team which won't be firing up its car anytime soon is Haas, and that is all to do with the new UK quarantine rules and the fact that Ferrari can't spare their engineers for the length of time that they'd have to be in isolation to come over to the UK to fire up the cars in Banbury. The team say it's not that much of an issue for them. There's so much carryover between 20 and 21 that really it's not the sort of be all and end all to fire the car up. They're pretty sure that everything will be fine when they go to do it in Bahrain at the first test. Mick Schumacher and Nikita Mazepin will, we expect, be in Banbury for their seat fits over the next couple of weeks. Why are they allowed to come over and not quarantine? Well, they are still part of the exemption under the elite sports person ruling that the government has. It's how most of the drivers have actually got over to the UK to do their seat fits. So we expect that to happen before the end of the month. The only other thing with Haas, and it's actually quite a cool thing, is that in all previous years we've normally seen a mock-up of the livery before any of the teams actually launch, and I believe Haas are intending to do that again in 2021. So with the first launches just around the corner, I think we would probably expect to see the Haas livery, at least, even if not the final car, before that first launch takes place. Really busy week for AlphaTauri. Yuki Tsunoda completed another 2 days of testing on February the 2nd and the 3rd in the 2019 STR14. He racked up over 1,000 kilometers at Misano. So a great run from him. They are giving him as much running as they can. After all, he has only 100 race starts to his name. He only properly started competing in single-seaters in 2017, so his rise through the ranks has been rapid, and the team trying to give him as much time as they can before testing commences to get himself up to speed and feeling comfortable in Formula One machinery. The team announced that it will launch its AT02 on February the 19th in what will, as most of them, be a virtual digital launch. We also have to report that Pierre Gasly sadly has tested positive for COVID-19 and is currently in quarantine in Dubai, where he was in training, in his pre-season training camp. I understand that when he is out of quarantine, he will return back to Europe immediately in order to conduct what he needs to do with the team before the season starts. Alfa Romeo now, and Antonio Giovinazzi has said that he has been given clear targets by Ferrari over their expectations for him in 2021. This comes in a week in which Mattia Binotto was also quoted as saying that Ferrari's eyes are on Mick Schumacher for a potential future at the Scuderia. Also, that Callum Ilott may get some runouts in 2021 in practice sessions on Grand Prix weekends. One would imagine with a customer team, an Alfa Romeo or a Haas, rather than easy for me to say, with Ferrari itself. But either way, great news that Callum should get some running in 2021. Now, it's been rumoured for a while, but it's getting increasingly more likely that we will have 2 races in Bahrain in 2021. And that is because the TBA race we expect it to be in Portimao, is now looking very shaky because COVID cases in Portugal are absolutely skyrocketing. So the fact that we're going out for the test, the fact we'll be in Bahrain anyway, lopping another race onto the end of that time does actually make an awful lot of sense, but the teams will need to know about it soon because freight and all their itineraries will need to be shifted around. It does, of course, give Formula One, I think, an ace if they have that second race in Bahrain, because it means that if any future races later in the season end up getting cancelled because of COVID, they have at least got that second race in the pocket from earlier in the season. Stefano Domenicali has been in the press quite a lot over the last few days, talking of the fact that Formula One has dropped its attempt to convince the teams to go for a sort of reverse championship order grid qualifying race on the Saturdays, but they are still talking about doing something a bit different at a couple of events, maybe in 2021 on the Saturday, trying to utilise that time maybe for a sprint race. So we'll see if that comes to fruition. He's also talked to the fact that he'd like to see Formula One go to America more than once in a year, and that he'd like to see F1 back in Africa. Which would be great. While we're talking about races possibly or possibly not happening, confirmation during the week that the plans to build a new Brazilian F1 venue in a heavily forested area in Rio has now officially been cancelled. It all seems such a shame that there was a great track in Rio which they demolished to build the Olympic Park, which now itself lies pretty much in, I'm not going to say ruins, but in a state of pretty massive disrepair. It's all just such a bloody shame. Juan Manuel Correa, who was so terribly injured in the crash which took Antoine Hubert, will mark a return to competitive racing in 2021. He will race for ART in Formula 3. It's a great bit of news, and everyone absolutely delighted for Juan Manuel, who is just he's a lovely bloke. So that's great news. In other F3 news, Cordeel and Colombo have signed for Campos, and over at HWA, Villa Gomez and Rasmussen will complete their lineup. Asian F3 now, and they've been racing a lot. The opening round at the Dubai Autodrome, Guan Yu Zhou took a double race win to lead the championship over race 3 winner Pierre-Louis Chauvet. Race 4 took place on Thursday in Abu Dhabi, where Jehan Daruvala won from pole. He's on pole for the next race, which is today, and then there's 2 more races over the weekend, 6 and 7 on Saturday and Sunday. So massive amount of racing going on in Asian F3. The Rolex 24 at Daytona now, and it was a hat-trick of victories for the unstoppable Wayne Taylor Racing. They've won 4 in the last 5. Absolutely unstoppable, seemingly unbeatable. This year, the team of Alexander Rossi, Elio Castroneves, Ricky Taylor and Philippe Albuquerque took the spoils, but they did come under pressure throughout the race, and especially in the closing laps from the team of the Ganassi team of Scott Dixon, Renger van der Zand and Kevin Magnussen. A puncture ultimately dropping them down to 5th. But great scrap, great tussle throughout the 24. All the classes actually hotly contested. It was a really fun Daytona 24. In the World Endurance Championship, Glickenhaus has unveiled its full roster of drivers for 2021. So alongside Briscoe and Menezes, who had already been confirmed, will be Durrani, Dumas, Mayo, Pla and Westbrook. That's a really, really strong lineup. IndyCar now, and as we discussed last week, Romain Grosjean has been confirmed with Dale Coyne for 2021. He will contest the road and street courses. He had been talking to Dale for the majority of the second half of the F1 season, was due to do the full campaign, but after his crash in Bahrain decided against doing the ovals, and you can understand why. He hasn't ruled them out forever, but just for 21, he's going to bet himself into IndyCar with the road and street courses. He has been in the gym ever since his accident, building up his upper body strength. Going to have to get used to cars with no power steering. IndyCar itself, more than half the field took part in a test at Sebring. Pato O'Ward led the way for McLaren from Alexander Rossi's Andretti. And Newgarden was 3rd for Penske. It was also first run of the year for Scott McLaughlin in his Penske. He was slowest, but only 100th off Ryan Hunter-Reay and around about 7/10 off the top time. Not a big gap at all. Can't wait to see what McLaughlin does. And with Grosjean joining as well, alongside, of course, Jimmy Johnson, it's going to be, and McLaughlin, I mean, what a lineup for IndyCar in 2021. It's going to be fantastic. Jordan King, former IndyCar and Formula 2 racer and all-round good egg, has joined the Mahindra Formula E team as their sim and development driver. He joins Rudy Van Buren in that role. Mahindra also have become the first Formula E team to be declared as being carbon neutral since their launch. In other Formula E news, the second round of the Accelerate Esports Championship took place on Thursday. It was won, once again, 2 wins out of 2 for Aaron Jajowski. He now leads the championship by 25 points from Kevin Siggy and Frederick Rasmussen in third. In Supercars, the Tasman Corridor is back in operation, meaning that a full field is expected for the start of the year. And it's a year which will see a points shake-up, as 5 points will now be awarded for the fastest lap in the sprint race meetings, meaning 120 bonus points available over the season. But the biggest news, and it's huge news and it can't be understated here, is that Jamie Whincup, 7-time Supercars champion and one of the racers of our generation in any category, will retire at the end of the 2021 season and will become the new team boss at 888 Racing. Absolutely massive news, and I wonder, could he win an 8th title, go out on a high? If anyone can, I would imagine it would be him. In British touring cars, 4-time champion Colin Turkington returns for another season, and he returns again with West Surrey Racing. It will be their 14th year competing together. Now, we touched on the DTM earlier with the Red Bull news, but the move away from Class 1 regulations has actually seen Mercedes announce that it will rejoin the championship, not as a factory outfit though, but as part of its customer racing portfolio. At Le Mans, the ACO has announced that Swiss-based Green GT will produce the electric powertrain for its all-new hydrogen class in 2024. So they're going to produce the electric motors, battery and the transmission for the one-make Red Bull Oreca chassis. The manufacturers and teams that enter the category will be free to develop the hydrogen fuel cell stacks that will ultimately produce the electricity. And in MotoGP, Honda has confirmed its commitment to the championship by signing a new 5-year deal. Confusion during the week as to whether the Thai race, the Thai GP, had been cancelled. Reports in Thailand said it had. The organisers said it absolutely has not. So a little bit of confusion going on there. It is, though, apparently still on. Sad news, though, that Brno, the fabulous circuit in the Czech Republic, having seen its 2021 round cancelled because it couldn't afford the track upgrades that Dorna requested, has issued a statement saying that it has decided against holding rounds of the World Championship both this year and into the future. A massive, massive loss because it's just a cracking track. The MotoGP calendar will now start with 2 rounds in Qatar, with round 3 supposed to be happening in Portugal. But as we said with Formula 1, there's absolutely no guarantee that the Portuguese rounds will happen at the moment, with COVID cases spiking. The US and Argentine rounds also remain postponed to an as yet undefined date. So that's about it, folks. A little bit different to our normal episodes because we've been inside rather than outside. I didn't even have time to have a sip of the tea that I promised myself. Thank you so much for following. Thank you for your comments and your questions, for your continuing support. Hit the subscription button if you haven't already, and join us next week for the next episode of This Week.